Okay, so today what we're going to talk about is essentially some of the body mechanics of Tai Chi, or internal martial arts in general, and we're going to talk about it in terms of Yiquan. Now, Yiquan is basically the most fundamental Yiquan posture. Posture is a set of 8 movements here. And one of the most valuable aspects of practicing each one is that it helps you develop your structure in your whole body connection as well as your root, which are two fundamental parts of internal martial arts. Without a root in full body connection, internal martial arts doesn't work. But there's another more subtle aspect of each one that I want to discuss today, which has to do with the transitions from posture to posture. And that is basically the idea of using opening and closing within the internal martial arts. Opening and closing basically refers to drawing in, so that as I'm here facing you, here, drawing in, this is closing, and this is opening. Now I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but in order to do this, what I'm doing is 3 things. It's called opening and closing the gates. The 3 gates are the thoracic gate, the pelvic gate, and the gate of the knees. And the way I'm doing that is to draw these in. The upper gate, or the thoracic gate, I'm drawing my sternum toward my backbone. Simultaneous to that, here, so you notice as I start, my hips are forward, they're drawn forward from the abdomen, but in order to close that gate further, I draw my hips forward even more from the abdomen, from here, and then when I open the gate, I go back to that neutral posture of the lumbar area being flat. Now finally, the last part of it, and this is actually one of the trickiest parts, is this drawing on the knees. Now I'm exaggerating here on the knees, but what I'm actually doing is not pushing my knees in, because that will lead to a knee injury. And my knee thing here, you notice the brace has nothing to do with a knee injury. I had a staph infection in my knee, had to have 3 surgeries, and now I walk with a cane and have to wear a brace to train. So I braced myself for that. Okay, so I can't resist a bad term, I'm sorry. So here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to, rather than pushing my knees in, I'm going to draw my knees in from the pelvic floor. So what I'm actually doing is drawing upward on the pelvic floor in the upper part of the thighs to draw my knees in. And then as I open that gate, we drop in. So as I'm doing this again, I'm doing all 3 of these. I'm going to draw the sternum inward, the pelvis forward, and the pelvic floor upward, and that creates this motion. Again, I'm exaggerating it slightly, but you can see as I'm doing it, that closes and opens the gates. Now, as I transition from posture to posture, I'm using that. The other part of this, which is subtle, has to do with coiling, and that has to do with this idea of as I turn in here, I'm going to coil. And when I'm doing the coiling, I'm actually moving the whole body. So I'm not just moving my arms here, I'm actually, the entire body is going to be involved in that. So I'm actually coiling. The coiling is actually beginning in the ground, traveling up my legs, and expressing itself in my upper limbs. So we'll first talk about that here. As I'm doing that here, you can see I start with Yiquan posture number 1. Again, my posture, you notice as I'm doing this, I'm not like this. I see a lot of people doing this. My hand is more or less relaxed, and I often talk about this. The proper way to get the hand is I have my thumb drawn in slightly, like I'm holding an egg between my thumb and index finger. The other part of this is that the fingers are slightly splayed, but not like this. It's more like this. You can go like this. I could have had it again. Okay, so that's the idea. It's just if you lay your hand right on your forehead and feel like you're just lightly resting your head. When you take your hand away, that's the appropriate posture of the hand. So as I start with my fingertips lined up with my eyebrows. Now that's posture number one. Posture number two, and this has to do with the coiling, is I do a slight turn of the fans, and you can see here if I turn sideways, there's a slight turn here, about a quarter turn, so that I'm looking at the palm of my hand here. As I do the quarter turn, I end up seeing that first knuckle right here on my upper hand, but I'm not turning it flat. It's more like about a 45-degree angle. As I'm doing that, I'm here. But that energy, that force, that coiling energy is actually beginning in the ground and expressing itself in the hand. Now as I come down, I'm actually, so now here you can see I coiled outward. As I bring my hands down to posture number three, I coil back inward, and I hold there. And now, for posture number four, I coil back again. So you've got here, I'm coiling my index finger and thumb toward me. As I bring my hands down, the index finger goes out and the pinky comes in, and then back again, and then up to here, and then down. When I come to here, I'm going to come down to my shoulders, and then I come out, and this looks like I'm sitting in an easy chair, and then finally there's a gathering motion here. And all of these motions contain both opening and closing and coiling. And I can give you an example of the coiling. Can I borrow you a second, Stan? So what Stan is going to do is going to just lightly put my hand on my wrist, just very lightly, and then one on the ankle. And you'll notice as I do this motion that coiling movement is actually occurring. You can actually feel it in my ankle as I'm doing it. It's not just my hands turning. You can feel that happening. So the coil, did you feel that? So the coil is happening, the whole body's involved in it, not just this. And so that's one of the things that when people do that, you got a while to know where you're at. I'm not even going to do that one first. So here, that's this way. Now, again, as I starting posture number one, and now I'm going to coil to come to posture number two, coil in the other direction to come to posture number three, coil again to come to posture number four. Posture number five is at the eyebrows, but the palms are down. So as I come here, I'm coiling even more. Posture number six, I'm coiling my thumbs outward and my pinky inward, and my hand is lined up with my index finger is lined up with my shoulder. Posture number four, I'm coming out, palms are down, and then posture number five is I'm gathering here. So that's the idea. Now, one of the things I was going to say is generally when you talk about doing each one, you're not changing from posture to posture so quickly. You might start with each posture, holding each posture for a couple minutes, and then ultimately you want to try to get to the point of where you're holding each posture for about 5 minutes. Again, one of the fundamental benefits of practicing each one is that strengthening of your overall structure, body connection, and your root. And again, without those three things, internal martial arts doesn't work. But when we talk about coiling, again, so what I'm going to show you is how this works. So Chris is going to come in here. You don't need that, this. Now, what he's going to do is just give me a little bit of resistance, grab it, just feet side by side. Now, if I'm just doing pung, right, and I push Chris backward, right, you might want to just stand back here because there's this downward slope. That way we don't end up having Chris die, really bad for my insurance. Okay, so here, notice my fingers are pointing through him. If I'm just doing pung, I come here and I just move forward. And you see what that does. Now, if I add coiling to that motion, the same thing. Here, same thing. Now watch, I'm just going to do coiling. And you get the same action, the same amount of force, but with the addition of the coiling, it adds more motion. Thank you, Chris. So what happens is when I'm here and I do the coiling, that is what I'm doing. That's what I just did with Chris. All of these turning motions, which begin again in the ground, are what's adding that. It's actually, we can think about it in terms of if you were digging, pung would be like digging with a shovel, and adding the coiling to the pung would be like using an auger to dig, right? So an auger, when it drills down, so I'm doing the same thing here. That's adding that drilling energy to make him move. Okay, so that's basically when we talk about coiling. That's the idea. Now, the next thing has to do with the idea of opening and closing of the gates. Now, as I'm doing each of these motions here, in fact, where I can do it where you can see it easiest is here from posture number 6 to posture number 7. I'm opening the gates here like this. So as I'm coming here, going from posture number 6, my gates are closed, so I have my hips drawn forward, my knees drawn up and in, my sternum drawn in, and now as I go to posture number 7, I relax that back to a neutral posture with the hips forward. And now I come in to posture number 8, and again here I'm closing the gates as I come in. As I come in, I'm drawing my hips, my pelvic floor upward to bring the knees in, drawing my hips forward, and drawing my sternum inward. Now this is where you get to use the thing. Now what that does,
Can I take a break? Can I take a break?
we done?
Can I take a break?
Take a break?
Yeah.